I think that the reason there is a bubble is because there's so much spending. There's so much money that's being spent that's not being recuperated in the revenue of the company. When they're buying all this hardware, they're buying all the CPU, their GPUs, and the RAM, and they're literally sucking up all of the hardware to build these massive data centers. While at the same time, there's companies like Apple that are trying to do it on device. So once we figure that out, once we figure out how to do these things on device, and we don't need massive data centers, what's going to happen to all these data centers? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Think Outside the BlueBox podcast. I am Anthony Rivera, the lead videographer here at BlueBox Digital. And Joshua, man, so much has happened since we last talked. It's been a few weeks now.
Yes, absolutely. It is funny how time flies by, and then all of a sudden everything happens all at once. You're like, what the
all
fuck?
At once.
Just chill.
We decided to take a week off, and literally the world blew up. So we're here. We're gonna jump right into it, man. Did you? First of all, everybody wants to know: did you switch? Did you get your foldable? No.
Okay, so here's what happened, right?
Okay.
So I went into the store. I said, I want to do this. The guy was like, nah. And I was like, what the? Okay, first of all,
What?
you're the salesperson. Why don't you want to sell me the phone? He said that he just didn't think it was a good idea, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He was like, do more research and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, listen, the only thing that you've convinced me out of this conversation is that maybe I should do more research. But at the end of the day, I want the fucking phone. Just give me the fucking phone.
Why did he talk you out of it? Isn't he on commission?
I guess not, because the dude was not willing to. And honestly, the interesting thing is, like, even when I was playing with it in the store and I was ready to switch, there was a part of me that was like, maybe I should just make sure. Because then, I waited for the Galaxy event when then they introduced all the new ones, but they didn't introduce another foldable, at least not the new iteration of the Z Fold, because apparently that might get announced in July. And I mean, previous to this, in I guess overseas, they introduced the trifold, and I think it's available in the States, but I think it's only available on their Verizon or something like that.
Yeah, it's just certain carriers.
Yeah, so it just, I was like, okay, I don't want the trifold. In my head, I was like, okay, first of all, I can't get it in my service plan, but I was like, I could get the trifold, even though it's way more expensive, but I don't even know if I like the foldable. So why go for tri when I don't even know if I like dual? So I didn't get it. But I think that the argument still stands that after everything I've experienced and everything I've been researching, I think I might just do it anyway. The only problem I had is that because the phone is so expensive, how you only pay the tax or whatever. Yeah, that's what you pay, right? You pay the taxes up front. Okay, yeah. The taxes were over $250, not to mention the connection fee. And I was like, oh my God, this is a purchase. God. And so I was like, okay, so that also deterred me a little bit, because I was like, I don't want to be spending $300 to switch to a phone for then 6 months later to be like, I got to do this all over again with another iPhone. But we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, I still want it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and Apple has been releasing some products here and there in the last couple of weeks. They just came out with the 17E. Have you seen that? Where it's
No.
the cheaper version of the 17. It's
17E.
17E. It's not foldable, but I think the foldable, honestly, yeah, I think the foldable is still coming because that's later down the line. I think it's September they do the official iPhone releases, but these are just minor upgrades. And they released a new laptop that was running an older iPhone chip. It's the 16 or 17X or something like that. Yeah, so it's running one of the ARM chips that's on the iPhone. So it's a little bit less expensive than MacBook Air. It's one of those budget things. I think they're trying to compete with the Chromebooks.
It's called the MacBook Neo.
MacBook Neo, yes. So
Interesting.
it doesn't have one of the M chips, so it's not the latest and greatest and fastest, but it's still way better than any Intel laptop that's out there. It barely even, I don't think it even has a cooling fan. It runs it runs so good, and they got the price point to $599, which is wild to me. It's wild to me. They're actually going to compete against Chromebooks and
wow, and cheaper Windows laptops. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be honest with you, even though it's an older iPhone chip, it's still going to be faster than anything that's out there Intel
That's
wise.
true.
It's going to be
Yeah,
more efficient. So, yeah, I'm happy that
that's
Apple's just
crazy.
kind of hitting every price point now, including the entry point, because that was the biggest thing for Apple. The people that wanted to jump into the Apple ecosystem but couldn't because the cheapest laptop that they could get is $1,000. And
Yeah.
it's not accessible to everyone. But now, and even the $599, it's already low enough. But if you go with the education discount, it's $499, so it's even
Oh my God.
cheaper.
An education discount with people who have like a school ID or school email.
Right, right, yeah. So if you're a
Okay, cool.
student or if you're a teacher or something like that, yeah, you can get an educational discount. I think that's what they're going for. I think they want to get their foot in the door back because when I
Right.
was, back in my day, Macs
Back in
were
my
in the 80s and 90s, back in my day, Macs were inside the classroom. They were
yeah.
there was an actual computer lab that you would go to, and there was full of Macs. So Steve Jobs knew that was the future. That was the way to get your foot in the door is education. So I'm glad that we're going back to that and making it accessible for schools and just making it easier for people to jump into the Apple ecosystem because
I agree.
there's no
I
match
mean,
out
we got
there.
to a point in even in the iPhone and iPad line that they had that they were basically computers. I mean, as long as you
Hmm.
connected a keyboard and a mouse to it, you could basically have it like as a laptop or, depending, or you could get like the iPad with the actual like keyboard that's attached magnetically to it. And it works just as well. I mean, the reality is that we're at a place where SaaS it's taken over the market in my opinion, in a good degree, because if we talk about how software needed to be installed to a very specific, it had to be Mac
Hmm.
compatible or it had to be Windows compatible. And it was like, okay, well, I don't have either of those things. I have an iPad and that's all I can afford. That's all I have.
Yeah, and you had to meet certain like minimum requirements. You had to have a certain amount of RAM
Right.
to run certain apps. It was just a
Right.
mess. So yeah,
It
no,
was
I agree
just a
with you.
mess.
SaaS is great.
Yeah. So now that people can do it online, I mean, even Adobe has an entire platform that you can do online, which is
Yeah,
insane. So
that's
it's like,
wild.
yeah, I think that I think that is the right move now. I mean, I guess maybe they could have done it a lot earlier, but maybe now is just the right time anyway. Just as good as any time. But that's cool though. That's actually, speaking of all the bullshit we talk about Apple, because fuck Apple, um, that's actually a very good move. I don't know. That's kind of nice to know. Which still, where's the foldable iPhone?
Yeah, I still hold my hope for it's coming later on this year. So we'll see. I think it's still coming. There's been a lot of prototypes out there. People have been buying. Apparently there's some schematic out there that got leaked. So people
Mhm.
are like creating 3D printing some foldable mock-ups, and it looks good. Like
Yeah.
if that's an actual device, I'm getting it. It's literally like a foldable iPad mini, basically.
Right. I'm still torn. I do want Apple to come out with one. There's I guess, familiarity, having had it
Yeah.
for so long, like a foldable iPhone just makes more sense. But I don't know. I kind of want to try the Galaxy.
Don't do
I
it.
want to explore Android. I want the green bubble for a little while. I just want to know. I want to know what the hype is because there's a lot of people who will go to bat for Samsung and Android. And we used to know somebody who was
Yes.
dead. He was like, he would fall on a
Hardcore.
sword for Android and Samsung or whatever. And now what is he using?
He's using an iPhone.
Yeah. So then I'm like, fuck, I don't know. I don't know. I do want to do, I also want to do it because I really admire a lot of something that I would love to do in my future if I can is to do like product reviewers, like people who gain the new technology, are able to use it for, a couple weeks, a month or whatever. And they're able to actually test it out and say like, this is what I actually think about this thing because I've had it in my hand for a while. And it's like that kind of experience I think is so important. And I think is what I was saying last time is like,
Hmm.
without experiencing it, you're basically comparing oranges to apples if you've never tried an apple before. Actually, scratch that. You're
Pun
comparing
intended.
apples to orange. Exactly. I was like, you're comparing apples to oranges, but you've never tried an orange before. It's like, you don't know what the citrusy, orangey feeling is like, but you're just like, "Ugh, but apples are so good." And I was like, you're right. Apple is so good. But what if an orange is also as tasty? And so it's like, I don't know. I want to try it out. So if things align, maybe by the next episode, I'll have it.
Okay, okay.
Because
Fair
I did do
enough.
my research and the guy was wrong. I think I'm going to like it. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think going to the store and putting your hands on it is one thing, but actually using it day to day for a few days, like in your actual life, I think that's completely different. I think
Oh
that's why
yeah.
Tesla does the 2 or 3 day test drives, because you get to take it home, you get to spend some time with it. You get to sit in the cockpit for a while and drive it and test all
Right.
the features and stuff. Where you can't do that in like a 10-15 minute test drive. So yeah,
No.
I get that. There should be something similar to that in the cell phone world, but there
Yeah.
isn't.
I mean, and if even if there's not something where you can like, let me take the phone out for a drive for a week, there should be, and I think that like the anytime upgrade thing that I have with my carrier is, I don't know how functional it is for the company or for the sake of, once you open a box for a phone,
Yeah,
it's no
that's true.
longer
No longer
new.
new.
You have to like
Yeah.
send it to refurbished and you have to try to resell it refurbished. Oh, that reminds me, maybe I can get a Z Fold refurbished. Hold.
There is a huge refurbished market emerging because one of my clients actually just interviewed someone from Clover, is a company that literally that's all they do is they buy returned products, they refurbish them to the original manufacturer specs. So it's not like you're not getting some off-brand secondhand, mom and pop shop refurbishment. Like they actually get it to the specs. They make sure that the battery's good and everything. And it's huge, huge business, man. Huge business.
Right. But that's the thing about refurbished that's always been fascinating to me. It's like people are like, "Ugh, but refurbished, that's not new." And I was like, you don't understand.
They got
If
a
a
bad
phone
rap.
is, yeah, they got a bad rap, but it's
Yeah.
also like, dude, if it's like, especially if it's like Apple certified refurbished, right? You have to think about it this way: the phone cannot be sold as new. That doesn't mean that it's not good. It just means that it was taken out of the box. Something either went wrong or was already wrong with it. They went back, they fixed what was wrong with it,
Hmm.
and now we're trying to resell it at a cheaper price, but still be able to make some profit off of that damaged product or faulty product that now is working 100%. And so it's like, I don't know. It never made any sense for me to fear refurbish. I think the problem is if I'm going to get a brand new phone and let's say a price of $1,000 and a refurbish is 850. I'm the kind of person who's like, what's $150? What are my,
To get it
what is
brand
this?
new, I'm the only owner it's ever
Like,
had.
listen, you only
Yeah.
live once, right? YOLO. So like, I don't know, I would be that person, but I do think that like refurbished gets a bad rep, and I think that in a way it's kind of the future of that's where I'm kind of coming from with this whole angle of like maybe there doesn't need to be an anytime upgrade. I don't know how that's going to do for the company, but if refurbished phones can be sold or can be put into the rotation of like, let's say, you know anytime upgrade means refurbished, but it also means that you get to try whatever phone you want, and if you return it, we just refurbish it and give it back to another client. You know what I mean? As sort
Hmm.
of like a used car lot, but like where you just kind of like exchange the car every time you don't like it. And I think that offers the opportunity. And I think honestly, lots of companies could benefit from this because Samsung and Apple aren't the only two people making products in the world. There's
Agreed.
so many other companies, and a lot of companies make incredible phones that don't get the traction that they need. Mind you, and albeit like most of those companies are always still using Android, they're still using the Google. So it's like you're really just getting a different casing for the same software.
Right.
But it is kind of cool. Like phones come out that are really cool, and then they should be explored and they should be put into the atmosphere so that people can get past this. Like, some people have iPhones and they hate them, but they have them because they don't know anything else. And I'm like, just switch to an Android. And they're like, ugh, the green bubble. And I'm like, if the green bubble is all you're thinking about, that is the most narrow-minded argument on the planet. Like, or
It's also a
nothing.
learning curve, man. Like switching from one platform to the other. It's like switching from Windows to Mac. Like there is a learning curve. Things
True.
are different. So it's the fear of the different, right? So you'd rather stick with something you like, something something you're familiar with, than just try something new and then not be able to find the setting or whatever, or an app that you really like. And
Right. That's
yeah,
fair.
so it's
But
just
also like
easier.
fucking just learn. Use your
Yeah.
brain.
Use your brain. Well, speaking of new devices, we'll talk about this quickly and then we'll move on. The Galaxy S26 Ultra just launched and it has some pretty cool features. I think it's lesser impressive than, the previous years of, these big major upgrades. The upgrades are very minor, but they're really cool features, man. I don't know if you saw the release videos of this, but they now have a built-in screen that is a privacy screen. When somebody works in something classified or a job that has a lot of secrecy, you don't want somebody on the train next to you looking over and, reading your email. So a lot of people
Right.
before, they would buy these privacy screens that it would be like a sticker you would put on, and it would change the quality of the display a little bit. It would make things a little blurrier, but then you people next to you wouldn't be able to see. Now the screen itself has that built in. It does something with the
Right.
pixels where it only lets the person in front of it see, and it's something you can switch on and off, which is so
Right.
cool. I think that the use case that I found the most fascinating is the fact that you can turn it on to certain apps. So for example, you're looking at your screen, right? And everyone can see it, but if you get a message from someone that you've marked confidential, the message itself on the screen will be
Get out.
hidden while the rest of the screen is still visible to the person next to you. It is so cool. It is a very fascinating technology.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember I saw some of the release, the release news, and that was really fascinating. I mean, the curiosity of how they could even develop that into the screen is like, huh? Like, what do
Yeah,
you
it's like
mean?
mind-boggling. Like, how do they do that with like pixel in like just specific pixels? Because if you do it to the whole screen, I can see, maybe there's something in the background moving or something, but this is a
Yeah,
per pixel technology, so you can hide just certain parts of the screen.
crazy.
Is wild.
Right. But I mean, this is also the company who innovated the idea of scanning your fingerprint through the screen. I mean,
That's true.
this
Yeah.
is this is what I'm talking about. Like, that is innovation. That is taking that's the simple product of, let's just say, the screen, and then making it more interesting, more functional. Apple, what are you doing?
No, even cooler is another feature that I saw that kind of blew my mind completely because for me, Apple has always been the camera company, right? Like I think
True.
they're a camera company and they just attach their cameras to cell phones. That is Apple to
Right.
me because they always focus on the
Right.
camera. But this Samsung S26 Ultra, dude, like it is on a whole nother level. It has stabilization to the point where you can take your phone and literally rotate it just like I'm doing right now, just like this, and it will still lock the horizon. It will like the video will still be rock solid. I don't know how they do it.
Rock solid like I am right now. That's
Yes. Like I could be moving
amazing.
my phone like this, and you would look exactly the way that you look right now. It is the most
That's
insane technology I've ever
crazy.
seen. Like, people were running with this thing, like jogging, like moving the phone up and down, and the thing was rock steady. It's insane. I know
Interesting.
the latest GoPro has something very similar to that, but still, if you take the GoPro and you rotate it, it's gonna rotate the image. There's only so much
Yeah, 'cause
stabilization that it has, but this thing is able to lock down that horizon like rock solid. I've never seen anything like it.
interesting. And then diving deeper into that technology, it's got to be because the way that Apple has done it in the past was that it steadies the image by increasing the image size and then sort of cutting out the edges that make it look wobbly. Because it's always been sort of the shortcut to stabilizing images in the past is that, like, it's shaky because the edges are shaky. If you take away the shake from the edges, it's a little steadier in the middle. And to be able to completely stabilize it without necessarily having the frame be the focus, it's more like the subject is the focus. That's crazy.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, it's kind of like they increase the size. I'm assuming this is the way that they do it because this is how 360 cameras work. Is that they have just this massive sensor, so it's literally capturing everything in 180 degrees in front of you. So it's capturing everything, and then in software they're able to lock it down to a specific part of that image. So because the sensor is so big and it's capturing everything all at once, they're able to still crop it down to just the part that's right in front of you and still maintain that quality. I'm assuming that's the way that it's working because that's how the iPhone does their stabilization too. Because they have these massive sensors and then they just crop it in. That's how they're able to do now where with the latest iPhones, you can hold it still vertical, but if somebody walks into the frame next to you, it'll turn it into a widescreen image without
Right.
losing any quality. It's that, right? So it's the bigger sensor, but you're only using a portion of it. I'm assuming that's the way that they do it. But it's fascinating.
Interesting. Dude,
Yeah.
I just saw a video of it. That's crazy.
Right?
That and people, somebody out there is going to argue, well, why the do we need that on our phone? And I was like, I can give you millions of reasons you
Million
need it on your
reasons.
phone.
Yes.
Like,
Shaky phone
you're
on
at a
social media
concert.
is so annoying.
Yes. So annoying. And it's like we're at a point where, where you're, not to get political, but like we're at a point where, quality film of something happening going down is very important. If it's shaky, if it's blurry, if it's unusable, it might not, be as useful. Like that footage might not be as useful for whatever the case may be. I mean, concerts or, trying to get something quickly that's running by, or maybe you're jogging and you want to record where you're jogging to. Like, there's a million reasons this could work.
Concerts is the first one that came to my mind because when I'm a concert freak, like I love live music, and every time that I go, I see people in front of me like just they'll start recording and then they'll hold it up and then they'll start jumping up and down and they're still looking at the so it's like what are you recording? What, the
Like,
lights? I don't understand. Yes. It's like looking back at that video, they're gonna be horrified. But with
right,
technology like
right.
this, holy hell, it changes the game, man. You can actually focus on what you're doing, the activity that you're doing, and just the camera's just secondary, right? As long as you're pointing in the general direction of what's going on, it's crazy, man. All right, man. So let's jump into the first official topic because we've bantered enough. I think that kind of turned into our first topics. Let's get into the news. So the first topic that I wanted to talk about is Anthropic. And, full transparency, I have officially transferred from ChatGPT to Claude, and it's the best thing I've ever done. It is so useful because it's like ChatGPT on steroids. It's kind of like it's like they took a chatbot, ChatGPT, and they added OpenClaw to it, and it's safe and legal, and it's not going to fuck up your files. For me, it's so useful. But the angle that I wanted to hit with Anthropic is the fact that they just refused the U.S. government's request to take their guardrails off of their AI for government use. And it has sparked this huge debate online because a lot of people are saying, it's the U.S. government. They should have access to it unfettered. There's that camp, but there's also the camp of why do they need these guardrails off, right? Like, what are they planning to do with it? And Anthropic, right. I saw some interviews with the CEO of Anthropic, and he was saying that if they do take the guardrails off, then it's very easy to program it so that it makes life and death decisions, which is not very ethical. So that there's that debate, right? Like, is it ethical to have a machine determine whether you live or die? Because there's so many biases built into this AI that it might pull the trigger on the wrong person. And there's just a lot of different things that could go wrong when that happens. And Anthropic is kind of like, we like the guardrails. We're willing to, ease them up a little bit to fit your national defense and your all of your use cases that you're looking to do, but completely unfiltered, unfettered. Have you ever seen a jailbroken AI chatbot?
No.
It's
What does that even mean?
It's wild. Like, there's no restrictions. You can ask it anything, and it's insane. And what I'm thinking is that's the kind of thing that Anthropic is trying to avoid, especially on a national, defense level.
Yeah, the question, I think the problem is the question is, and it's a very important question, is why? Like, what are you using Claude for already that you need guardrails off? And it doesn't surprise me that this administration would ask something so insane of an AI.
Yeah.
But then for ChatGPT to then jump in on the contract is wild. That's the part where I'm like, oh, that doesn't make me feel comfortable at all.
So Anthropic, because they kind of told them no, the Trump administration is actually labeling them as a national security risk, which, say what you will, it hurts the company. It hurts the company in the sense that they can no longer do business with the government, the U.S. government. It puts them in a negative light. It's almost like blacklisting them, and it's sort of a bully tactic, right? It's like, do what we say, or we're going to label you this, and you'll never work in this country again. And so,
no surprise there, though.
Yeah, and Anthropic is not backing down, which I respected, and that's why a lot of people are making the switch now from ChatGPT to Anthropic. On top of that, like you said, OpenAI jumped at the opportunity. Like, as soon as Anthropic backed out, the U.S. government did what they did. OpenAI said, "Hey, we will let you do it," and I actually saw recently that they got so much backlash for that, kind of grifting and being an opportunist, like, "Hey, I'll do it," Like,
Right.
I'm desperate. So they got so much backlash for it that they had to back down a little bit. They had to maybe amend some of the contracts that they had made with the government. So they are putting some guardrails on it, but it's still going to be very unfettered and unleashed, if you will. Yeah.
The crazy thing for me, even in that whole atmosphere of like, what does an AI company offer to specifically a government that, re- you know, why would they ask for the guardrails off? What is the intent? You know what I mean? It's like, and we talked about in the past on this podcast about privacy and,
Hmm.
being monitored through cameras and through, this mesh of like, we won't be able to really escape the government's eye because everything we do and say is going to be recorded or it's going to be monitored in one way or another. And I, I see the complete terrifyingness of that. And it's like, okay, now add on the idea that the government is now using AI with no guardrails to do what? Like, if it's already bad enough that they want to like monitor our every move and listen to our every word, what else are they going to use that for?
Yeah, and that's what people are saying is that it's not only, the ethical part of war and having it kill on demand. It's also the mass surveillance that's already happening. And we've talked about this in our last episode, that mass surveillance that the NSA is performing right now on its own citizens. Now you add AI on top of that, everything will be monitored to that point,
Hmm.
right? So when you introduce unfettered AI into a mass surveillance system, what does that do? Like, what is that? It's, yeah, I don't know.
I can't even think. I don't even have theories. Like I don't even have real life examples to pull from because the reality is that it's all about power and money. It's always
Yeah.
about power and money. There's no doubt about it. So if the case is power, okay, fine. Then we have this untethered AI. Be afraid. Fine. All right. But then this isn't the only AI company. There's not just two. There are lots, and there are lots on every country. I mean, there's, Chinese developers and Japanese developers and Russian developers. And we're not just talking about like the possibility of like, oh, well, it's just ChatGPT that's going to have power. It's like, no, they're also connected through the internet and they're all absorbing the same information and they all have
Everything.
access to the same internet. So what could you possibly want to do other than be able to use AI to hack into the mainframes of foreign countries to be able to infiltrate their defenses and to, do certain things? And it's like, also, haven't we gone through enough of colonialization that we don't just want to maintain the peace in our own country? What is this desire to take over the rest of the world? Everybody just chill, like just take to your country. Your countries are already bad enough. And the only reason I can see this is constant, pull and struggle for oil and for some sort of profit margin. And it makes no sense to me because I'm like, at the end of the day, we took over Venezuela for oil. We're bombing Iran with Israel's help and all of these things for what? For power, for oil, for what else are we trying to get? And then at the end of the day, oil prices aren't going down. Like it's not like it's good.
It's
We're not
actually
going to
going up.
benefit from that. They're
Yeah.
going up. And I was like, so we're not, there's nothing is being done for the sake of the people. It's all being done for the sake
No.
of the people who want money in their pockets. And the irony and the scary part of that is that they're willing to kill innocent people to do it. And now you want to attach an AI to that? What is happening to the world?
The
Jesus.
government's argument is that like you said, there are other governments that are developing similar technologies. Like, the main example is China, that
Yeah, of
they are
course.
developing, they already have mass surveillance to a scale that we've never seen before. Like, these,
Oh yeah, no, it's insane.
yeah, Chinese people are so oppressed because of all the restrictions and all the mass surveillance and everything that's going on in China, and they are in fact developing AI to, not necessarily run it, but like incorporate it into this mass surveillance system. And I think that's the fear, right? So if someone out there is doing that, by us not doing it, are we kind of disconnecting and willingly putting ourselves at risk?
Maybe, but also the idea of control for the sake of profit, for the sake of making the rich richer, has the problem is that you're taking you're taking an example of a country like China I don't think it was a quick turnaround, right? This was a slow build to their sort of surveillance, to the the restriction, the way that the Chinese people are repressed. And, I don't know a lot about it, so I can't even say if repressed is the correct word for it. But let's say that they're just at a place where like it's completely different from America. It was a slow build. And now we're talking about America, who is all about freedom, you know what I mean? And we have a very large portion of the population who does not believe in the government taking control or doing these kinds of things. I think that the backlash and the resistance is going to be more and more. It's like the more and more you try to push something that people do not want, the harder they're going to push back. And I think that the problem with that sort of mentality of they're going to have to do things very underhanded, very under the radar. It's going to be very scary. And then eventually it'll pop up on us in a way that we cannot fight it anymore. But it goes back to that same question a couple episodes back, or maybe the last episode, where you said, like, when we have no choice, what do we do instead? Do we just embrace the fact that, like, all right, fine,
We have
have
no
all the
privacy.
access?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like forget it. Just listen in, watch me naked. I don't know what you want from me, because at the end of the day, money talks. There's only, the way that the rich have control over this country or control this world is terrifying. And what are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
Protest? I mean, I'll protest, but like,
that doesn't seem very effective, especially lately. It seems like our voices really don't matter.
no. I mean, we're getting up to a point where like we can speak up and say what we want, and hopefully our politicians are listening and they're fighting for us. But as it stands, I mean, we're full of an entire government. A lot of politicians are fighting against a lot of things being released because their names might be on there, and it's just like, so you're telling me all of you are pieces of shit. We all elected you to be our representatives. So now we're all pieces of shit together. And it's just like, and this is why I like to focus on things like the Z Fold.
Yes.
Like, I just want joy. Where's the joy going to come from?
And I think the fact that China has been able to develop AI to the point that it is, in spite of all of our embargoes and the NVIDIA chip thing where we weren't selling them the latest and greatest chips so that they wouldn't catch up to us, but they figured it out anyway, like that. That is, I think, what's scary to the U.S. government is the fact that these guys can figure it out. Reverse engineer even some of our AI technologies with DeepSeek. DeepSeek is a Chinese OpenAI, basically, is an AI company that makes a chatbot, and it's open and free to the public, and they have been able to reverse engineer ChatGPT to the point where now they can match and surpass ChatGPT in certain tests, even though they don't have the latest and greatest chips and the latest and greatest training data and everything like that. So the fact that they've been able to do that with such scrappy, ingenuity, I think that's what's scary. And I think that's why the U.S. government is kind of freaking out a little bit, because they're getting, beat in AI, something that we, originated, that stuff originated here in U.S. companies. And now, it's to the point where everyone can do it,
Yeah. I think what's fascinating to me is that we believe that if we gatekeep something, that the other people are not going to be able to figure it out. We're talking about China.
100%. 100%.
What are you talking about?
Gatekeeping
These
doesn't
people are
work
gonna
anymore.
No, maybe there are brilliant minds everywhere, and in China, are you kidding me? Like, I would expect them to have surpassed us before ChatGPT was created. Like, it makes no sense for us to even remotely believe that us as Americans have the most brilliant minds in the world. And no offense to the most brilliant minds in the world in America. I'm just saying that, like, at the end of the day, we're not the best of the world. Like, what the inflated ego of the American public is so crazy to me. Like, we're not the greatest. In fact, we're one of the for a country that's considered one of the superpowers, and we tote this first world country bullshit. Like, we're doing pretty badly on education, on the general health. Like, we're not doing very well. Like, there's a lot of countries who are way better than us. And to me, that, like, this idea that, like, oh, let's just, like, make sure, like, we got to keep up with them. It's just like, okay, fine, you got to keep up with them because money, power, and the prospect of national security. But then at the end of the day, like, okay, and you think that they're not going to figure it out before us, even if we don't share the same code? Like, get out of here. I was watching, so recently, the Oscars are coming up next week, and we've been trying to really catch up on all of them. And I saw on the foreign films, a Brazilian film called A Secret Agent or The Secret Agent. Very good movie. And one of the things that one of the, the topics in the movie is that essentially the villain is shutting down research at a because at this time, this is in the 70s, and apparently Brazil was divided between the North and South, which I think is hilarious. Why is it
That's
always the North
crazy.
and South? What? So they were trying to shut down a northern school research because, they were talking about how like it's a waste of time for them to dive into the electric car because Canada is already making better progress than they are. And I was like, this is a perfect example of what we're talking about now. The idea that like Brazilian researchers were already like honing in and possibly, breaking the idea of an electric car in the 70s, but then Canada was already doing it. So, this Brazilian man, I don't even know if he was a dictator. It was very hard to distinguish in the movie, but
Hmm.
if you watch the movie, you'll know why. It's a very interesting concept of a movie. And so like this guy, this dictator, this person was shutting them down. And the irony was that like, even if Canada was doing it better, Brazil was already doing it. And this whole prospect of this is because Canada was giving his company those prototypes to continue on the development so that his company can make money off those prototypes. So of course they wanted to shut it down for this, this research lab in the north. And it's like, it was wild to me. But then it also, it signified two things. One, the idea that we are constantly trying to have this space race with technology, especially AI now, and on the other hand, the fact that multiple different countries can have the same concept and be able to break through in different places, it makes no sense it's always never made sense to me. Like, you could literally join forces, create an electric car, and save the world's environment. Or you can block everybody else from making a better product so that you can make billions of dollars. Honestly, we've run into so many like crazy narcissists in our lives. We have so many that we can choose from. So I don't know, man. I think that we just, as a population, either we've created enough narcissists that like society suffers from the lack of empathy, or the world's always been full of evil people and nothing good will ever come from anything. I need a drink. It's like, where's the Baileys and coffee? Good Lord.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I'm of the camp of there's always been evil people on this planet to the same scale that there is now, but now with technology they're giving the power and the spotlight and the attention that they so craved for such a long
Right.
time, and it's just so easily and accessible now that and the worst people are the ones that really quote unquote succeed in this society.
Right.
That's why there's such a huge power imbalance. But yeah, I don't know. It's like you said, we're stuck in this, and what do we do? What do we do about it?
We don't do anything. And honestly, the greatest thing about the conversation, the greatest thing about the conversation though, is that like there is, and this is what I was trying to say in the past about embracing the technologies for our own personal use for the time being. I think that like, I have a friend who she refuses to use AI because it's hurting the environment and all of these things. And I'm like, you're a bleeding heart, and I love that for you. Like, the fact that you're a good person actually makes me happy that you exist in the world, because there's a lot of shit people.
Yeah.
However, we also live in a country, we also live in a society where every little thing we do, every single movement we make on this planet, especially in a country like ours, it leads to a chain of exploitation. Doesn't matter what it is, whether you're taking the train, whether you're buying groceries, whether you're spending money on anything, you're spending money on anything, on Amazon, on Temu, on subscription services. It doesn't matter where you are, what you do in this country. You cannot touch a single thing without exploitation. And so to me, these technologies and these things that are coming out, and people will fear them, and environment and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, fine. Yes, be a bleeding heart. Stop it. At the end of the day, you will never stop the machine. Never. And for you to not utilize it, okay, great. Don't use it. There's still a billion other people who will.
Who will?
And unfortunately, it is a technology that, like you said, you yourself are now benefiting from Claude, because you were able to use a new technology that wasn't ChatGPT, that has now made your workflow easier. It's been more productive. So we're going to say no to that, because water. And I understand, and I wanted to go back on my argument because I did start researching about the water usage of AI, and it
Mhm.
is terrifying how much water it's used. And I didn't really understand the scope of like fresh water versus, what water are we using and what resources are we using for this water? And, you know, what is the truth behind the recycling of water through its, through its natural stages? And so I guess I didn't really understand at the time of that podcast, but even understanding it now, the gravity of the situation for AI has been so, it's like you're dramatizing a situation that is it's a singular problem. I mean, we were literally, as we were discussing the idea of not using AI because of water, we were eating hamburgers. And I was like, do
Yeah.
you understand that what we're eating is worse for the environment than using the chat GPT? Like literally buying this burger is like giving money to these farms that are essentially destroying the planet through the methane gases of cow. Like, we need to be smarter about what we're mad about because we get mad at whatever the media is telling us to get mad about. And for the most part, we're manipulated, outrage culture. We're manipulated into believing that the problem is AI. It's like, no, dude, the problem is that like we have so much other shit happening in the world and you want us to focus on AI so that like we can make a villain out of something. And there's always a villain, man.
Usually, when we're told to fear something, there's a hidden meaning behind it, right? So if somebody
Oh,
tells
yeah.
you, "Hey, look, this is bad," they're probably selling the opposite product, or they're in another industry that benefits
Then
from
another industry.
that
Yeah.
being hated. So we're constantly being manipulated. That's why a lot of people don't fall for the advertisements now, and the news is
No.
just all full of hate and fear, and we're just constantly being pushed and pulled in different ways and told that this is bad, but then decades down the road, it's like, oh no, that wasn't the bad. This was the bad.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, we're just stuck in the middle
Yeah.
of it. But I
Yeah.
think the going back to the Anthropic, I think having people in power that are not narcissists, that do have ethics, that are willing to say no to the US government, for example, I think that those are the people that we need to support, because those are the people that are out there to make the change for the people, not for the people in power. And I think that's a good example of what happened between Anthropic and OpenAI, is that one was seen as the hero, as the
Mm.
savior, as the person who said no to power, and then the other one who just wanted the money and greed. And I think that's why there's this mass migration happening to Anthropic, because
Right.
I don't know if you've seen it in the news over the last couple of weeks, but Anthropic crashed hard. Like
From other people going.
all of the people migrating over after the whole U.S. government thing happened, because yeah, people respect that. And in this society specifically, you talk with money, right? So as a consumer,
Hmm.
we feel like a lot of the times we don't have power, but we do. We are
Yeah, we do.
speak with our wallets. If you
Right.
stop spending money on something, it's gonna catch attention. It's gonna
Right.
drive change, and we just need to leverage that a little bit better, I think.
Right. I do agree with that. And there's always, there was I always like to think of the example of like how we were, villainizing fat as the reason that people were getting fat. So it was like eating fatty foods was the reason people were getting fat. And then the reality is that it's like, no, it was actually
Our bodies
sugar and
need fat.
carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's essentially the sugar industry that was funding these research to show people it's like, no, fat is bad. And there's something to be said about eating too much fat, but there's that kind of campaign was to mask the fact that there was the sugar and the carbohydrate industry. And I think that example is so important for people to understand how important it is to see, like, if you see a research paper, or you see some sort of research, or you're doing your own research and you realize that, like, oh my god, all this research says this. Who's doing the research? Who's funding the
Exactly.
research? Is it a third party research company? And
Do they benefit from this research?
right. If the company themselves are supplying the research, why do we believe the company's research department is actually giving us correct information? And the same thing with Claude, and the same thing with ChatGPT. And this idea that like we have power is interesting, because I remember that there was remember what the political stance was at the time, because there's too much going on, but something was going on with a streaming service. I think it was like Netflix or Disney Plus or something. And people were like, cancel your Netflix account. And there was a lot of people who did it. And I do think that there was a power in numbers. I think that unfortunately the problem is, how do you convince the mass majority of people to do the right thing? And I think the problem with that is you have many different camps, and one of those camps is people who just don't care. And then the other camp is they're just not going to do that because they would rather watch Netflix. Or the other camp is, well, we're going to do that, but like we're still going to give money to someone else. And then like I said, no matter what you do, you're still, you're still providing money to so someone who's exploiting someone else. So I think that the issue that we have is that we live in a society where no matter what, somebody has to suffer for us to succeed. And if the case is that, people go to Anthropic because ChatGPT decided to take over the contract and now they seem like the hero, honestly, that could be a very good thing, as well as it could be a double-edged sword and give Anthropic a lot more power. So there's also like, everything has a negative sound side. On the topic of Claude, though, I do want to know what you think about it. Like, I'm curious to know because you told me it was like the best thing that ever happened, and I was like, well, but why? Tell me more. I want to know what to use it for.
Yeah, no, it has a lot more benefits in the sense that you can give it access, especially with co-work. You can give it access to your local files. You can have it organize it. You can have it scan documents and even watch videos for you and label the videos, like rename the videos depending on what's actually in the content. So it has a lot more, clause, if you will, where it kind of has a lot more access than ChatGPT does in the sense of your own data. So now you can manage your own data better. One example that I didn't even know that was a thing until I watched a video recently is that you can give it access to your Apple Notes. You can give it access to your iMessage, so it can read your entire chat history and then help you come up with a good response. Whereas ChatGPT doesn't have that. You would have to like export your chat history, import it into ChatGPT, and then ask it questions about it. Whereas Claude with Cowork, you can just do that. And I think that's where the power is. I think the fact that you can now give it access to your own data is so powerful. And I think that's where all AI is going eventually, especially with these agents that can go out and do things for you on their own. One thing I will say about ChatGPT is that it's a lot more current because it can search the internet. It can find stuff that literally happened today. Like you can ask it questions about news articles that literally just came out. Whereas Anthropic is not. It's stuck in this, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago with ChatGPT 3.5, where it's like, if it wasn't trained on that data, it didn't know it existed. So you could ask it something that happened today.
You had to wait.
You had to wait until it was retrained. But now it's gotten better to the point where it could just do a web search and then give you the most current information. I will say ChatGPT is still better at that. But if that's not necessarily important to you, if work and productivity and efficiency is more your style, I would say try Claude because it's definitely up there.
But then again, Gemini is Google direct connection to the internet with their own search engine that's been developed for decades. So I think that it's like, I think, honestly, ChatGPT has become, I actually canceled my ChatGPT subscription like a few weeks ago after we had this talk about Claude, because I was like, okay, well, because then you were telling me that it was the same price. And I was like, you're right. It is the same price. So that I got rid of ChatGPT, and then I was going to go to Claude directly, but I wanted to see how it would work on my computer first. But I think that the AI wars, and I forgot to tell you about this. There's a video that I saw that was talking about the AI bubble. And it was interesting because the way that companies invest into things is based on fear and prediction. The idea that a company can put in billions and billions of dollars into something and then it blows up. And then eventually when it gets too big, it pops and people start losing money in droves. And the way the AI bubble has been building is very similar to those types of things. I mean, let's not forget NFTs was what they were called.
Yeah.
NFTs.
Now it's like, what is that?
Yeah. And they're like losing so much money on NFTs. So like there's always bubbles, right? And I think that the thing about the AI wars and the AI bubble is a little different than NFTs because there is so many real world applications to it. But I do think that there's a bubble. And so there is going to come a time where all of the big companies that are investing so much money into these AIs are going to see a drop in profits because at some point you only can put so much into something before you've just reached to a pinnacle of like, okay, this is as much as we can put in. And then if you push it and push it and push it, like companies who are popping out of nowhere. ChatGPT could end up losing billion. They're already losing billions. I mean, Gemini, if Google doesn't, Google's implementing into their Android, it's implementing it into your browser. Like the way that AI is building is going to depend fully on user cases. And if
Yes.
ChatGPT can do that, sure, but Gemini can do it better. So then ChatGPT will fall on the wayside. Gemini will increase. Claude can do this. Now Gemini can do the same thing. It'll just continue to be this
Hmm.
like stack. I think the most important thing for me at this point is what they're fucking doing to our market for computers in the future. That's the part that's actually pissing me off.
Yeah, and that ties back to the kind of the bubble that you were talking about, because I think that the reason there is a bubble is because there's so much spending. There's so much money that's being spent that's not being recuperated in the revenue of the company. When they're buying all this hardware, they're buying all the CPU, their GPUs, and the RAM, and they're literally sucking up all of the hardware to build these massive data centers, while at the same time there's companies like Apple that are trying to do it on device. So once we figure that out, once we figure out how to do these things on device, and we don't need massive data centers, what's going to happen to all these data centers,
Do you think that
right?
we'll ever get to that on device though?
I think so. I think so. I think we're
Yeah.
close now. I think that the thing that's holding us back, because we already have NPUs, which are neural processing units on all of these devices that can do all of this stuff on device. I think the problem is holding the models. The models themselves are so massive. They're like gigabytes and terabytes of data that the models need to function. But I think if we can figure that out, I think if we can solve that, if we can make these models smaller to fit on, a cell phone, I think we will be able to do it on device, honestly.
Okay. I mean, I don't doubt that you're right. I guess like my vision for it is not necessarily that it's. I think that there's this weird sort of emphasis on technology that we are currently available. Like right now, this whole GPU or RAM shortage
Hmm.
is driving me insane because I understand why, but then it's also like, but also why? Because like you said,
Yeah.
it could be on device. It's like, why aren't we like looking into to changing the technology to be able to do something that doesn't require these kind of massive projects slash destruction of one market?
Yeah, no, and the fact that these guys are building, I don't know if you've seen, but it's called Stargate, and it's the biggest data center that's ever been built. And it's a lot of different companies. OpenAI is one of the backers. Oracle is another. Some of these massive companies are building literally the biggest data center that's ever been built, and they're calling it Stargate. And I think that's the main reason why there's such a shortage on hardware, is because these guys are buying it all, everything that's available, and even that the manufacturers are having a hard time keeping up with the demand. And that's one of the reasons why Nvidia has completely shifted from gaming to now AI, because the hardware is so in demand, and these companies don't care, right? Like they know that the future is going to be on device, but they don't care, like, because these companies are just on a massive spending spree, and it's quick cash, right? And like you said earlier, money talks. And even though it's kind of completely drying up the market for everyone else, they don't care. They're still making money hand over fist. And the fact that they're even neglecting the gaming industry is wild to me, because
Wild.
it's gonna stifle ingenuity. And like, games were on a trajectory, right? We were getting close to like it looking real, and like all the stuff
Right.
that was promised, and now that's completely on hold because of like the hardware shortage. Consoles are being delayed, some are being canceled completely, some are even shifting from consoles to online cloud gaming. So it's completely disrupting the gaming market completely. It's
I
wild.
agree. I think what's interesting now is you said that I love disruption. I love chaos
Me
because
too.
I do. I love seeing everything
I
go
am
to
an
shit.
agent of chaos.
I really just want to watch the world burn. But I think the fascinating thing about chaos and this kind of disruption is that scarcity feeds innovation. The idea that
That's
we are at a
true.
place where RAM is at a shortage because it's going so much to AI. And now video game companies, they're not going to give up doing video games. That's what they do. And the market is still very big. whether or not it stands still on the current available, even if the innovation doesn't happen right away and they're having to just sort of program for the most current available hardware, I think that it'll create a world where there will be other companies who are like, well, if they're not doing it, we have to. I mean, at one point or another, NVIDIA was just given here's everything you need. Tell us what we need to do to develop these chips. And now if they're not really doing it, then another company's like, well, okay, if NVIDIA's not doing it, then we're going to do it with all the shit that we've been researching that NVIDIA wasn't using because they weren't researching the same thing we are, tying it back to the idea of the electric car in two separate countries. Like, maybe my electric car is not going to be as great as yours, but because you're not doing your electric car anymore, your research is at a standstill. Mine is going to surpass yours, and now I'll be able to create something better than you did.
Right.
So I do think that it sucks. And that the reason it's pissing me off, I had a computer set up, like a setup that I had written down all the specs. I knew exactly how much it was going to cost. I knew exactly how much I was going to need. I wasn't necessarily saving a ton of money for it because I was like, it's going to change every 6 months anyway. So I just kind of kept up with it. I was like, let me play around with it today. Oh, there's something new. That was kind of my mentality. Now,
you waited
I have
too
to
long.
I did. And I was like, now I have to either completely get rid of this idea or wait till the RAM comes back down again because, dude, it's just insane. And to me, it's insane to me that this is even a conversation because how are we still relying on RAM? First of all, so Microsoft came out with a new chip. I don't know if you've heard of this. You probably most for sure have, right?
Is it
the quantum chip?
Yes.
Yeah, the quantum chip. And I'm like, okay, take that into consideration. Also take the M3 or the M chips from the Apple consideration. Now we're looking at RAM, CPU, like these different components to just be combined into one. And now the idea that these things, as long as we're able to continuously develop these one chip, there's no need for separate elements. And so if we can get to a place, hopefully with innovation and with research and with time, that these chips can have, a user, a usual user only needs about 32 gigabytes of RAM anyway. There's no need for anything more than that unless you're using a workstation. And then if we get to a really good, secure, even faster accessibility to the RAM from the CPU, we may not even need that much like we used to for video gaming, especially when the GPU already has its own RAM now, So there's this frustration that the RAM industry and the chip industry is still, tying us into this idea that we have to do a la carte. Everything has to be separate. You have to get the CPU separate, the RAM separate, the storage separate. And it's it actually makes no sense when the technology is slowly being, shifted into the idea of one chip is all. And so and the only reason I say it pisses me off is because it's I'm not the only person who was looking forward to, I bought the Legion Go 2 that recently came out in October. And then the supply chain got so bad that now they're even more expensive than they were when they first released. There's even possibility they'll just stop producing it altogether because, whoever got it. Everyone else, I'm so sorry, we can't do it anymore because it's too expensive. And it's just this is insane. It's insane.
It's so disruptive in the short term because, like you said, people had plans. Steam had plans to release a new console and a new VR headset, and now they're having to delay it because they don't know if they're going to be able to maintain the price point. So it's hugely disruptive in the short term. But I think, like you said, I'm being optimistic about it because I think it's sparking ingenuity in different ways in different industries that weren't even a thought before. I think the hardware industry has gotten into the kind of like the same rhythm as Apple, right? So it's very iterative, where they just iterate and not innovate. So it's RAM gets a little bit faster and a little this and a little that, and every year they try to milk it. But now it's to the point where now software developers are even figuring out different ways of doing AI driven shortcuts in games to make it look better, to make it upscale on the fly, to make it, so I think these innovations are happening that there wasn't a need for it before because chips were so fast. But now that we're kind of stifled and stuck on the current gen chips, I think like I said, the software part of it is now completely exploding and being scrappy, if you will, with the stuff that is currently there. I don't know if you've seen, but because now NPUs are a thing, right? So you can run AI locally on device. there is a game engine that you can give it a photograph, not even a video, a photograph of an environment, and it will literally generate the rest of the environment, and it will run on the fly. It will run live. So you can do WASD, you can move around like a game engine, but it's generated by AI. There is no game engine, there's no CG, there's no pixels. It's literally just generating it on the fly, and it looks real because it's a real photo. Like it's a photo of a real place. So it's like it's generating all this stuff to the point where you like it looks like you're watching a movie, but you're actually controlling it. So even stuff like that wasn't even a thought back then. Like we were iterating on the current technology with the voxels and the pixels and the textures and all that stuff. But what if we don't have to do that? What if we could just jump straight to AI driven games that, you know, are generated on the fly? And yeah, I don't know. I think there, like you said, there's always a bad thing, but there's also always a good thing. So it's the two camps that are always fighting against each other.
Right. I mean, this whole idea of planned obsolescence, that's how you say it, right? Obsolescence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating because I was watching a video about how it's one of those silly videos, like top 10 things, but it was one of those top 10 things that were so good they failed. And it made it was such a fascinating watch because it was like, no, you're right. Like they created this product. I think one of the products that comes to mind is unbreakable plates. The plates were made out of a certain material. This material literally could not break. Like you could throw it against the ground and it wouldn't shatter. And they were functional plates. And I don't know if they were non-toxic or anything, but they were great. However, once one family bought a set, they never needed another set again. So 10 years down the line, or however long down the line before the company failed, they were still using the same set of plates because they never broke. So then at the end of the day, they were like, okay, well, we stopped selling to people because people bought all we had and we can keep developing, but no one's buying. And then eventually the company failed.
They drive themselves out of business, which is wild. Yeah.
I don't like the idea of planned obsolescence. I hate it. However, were it not for planned obsolescence, we wouldn't have the iPhones we have today. We wouldn't have the technology we have today. Because the idea that you have to create something that breaks is so important for the development and for the innovation to continue. The idea that you can make a GPU or even RAM that is the fastest it could ever be is dangerous. Because if you can make it faster than anything else, it might not have other components, you know, because they say that the computer is as fast as the slowest component. Just because you make a RAM that's as fast as possible that it could ever be, you know, you've somehow have alien technology. It doesn't matter. If everything else in the computer is too slow to handle it, then that RAM is not going to matter. So I think that the fascinating thing about, you know, innovation and this idea of planned obsolescence is that, like, because we're at a place where, you know, this RAM crisis is happening because people are consuming RAM, the irony is that RAM can never stop being developed, can never stop being increased. It can never stop being produced. So there is a world, in my opinion, with innovation, with, you know, with struggle, with chaos, with, you know, this war that we're having with AI and technology, that I think that, you know, even to the point of embracing something like that, what you were saying about this video game style with pictures and being able to let the AI do the thing. I think the interesting thing is that innovation will eventually become something that we will embrace, because technology has now officially become something that, okay, just because we embrace this doesn't mean it's the end. It means that we can embrace this and then continue forward. And so, and then again, you know, not to mention that, you know, I agree with you that the idea of the way that video games render is, to me, has never made any sense, because I'm like, I actually kind of don't understand why you thought this was the best way to render games, but I don't know anything about this, so whatever. So the idea that now we are getting even to a place of ray tracing, and like it's gotten so good to the point where it can literally reflect minuscule pieces of shadows and create like actual reflections on mirrors, and even though they're, you know, virtual mirrors. I think that's fascinating, but I think we can go further. And the only way that we can go further is to embrace something that's going to make it a lot easier for the people behind the computer, you know, typing it out and actually putting in the technology and putting in the work. There has to be something that they can do that will make that process easier and faster. The thing about video games will always be, for me, I don't play video games because, you know, I want to play the same thing over and over again. No offense to people who like things like Fortnite. I just don't get it. I can't do it.
It's
What
very
do you mean it's the
repetitive.
same thing? So repetitive. And I get people who love that. And I love a roguelike game. Don't get me wrong. But for me, the concept of video games having these incredible stories, these incredible worlds that unfold, that are created by people, that are designed with these details, with these nuances that I don't think a computer can truly capture. I don't want that to go away, but I do think that if they didn't have to fucking focus on every single fucking polygon, that they can possibly do something greater, better, more refined, and even faster so that ideas get to the market quicker and the video games are more functional and they look better. And then companies can really focus on, like, I don't know, hiring the right people and,
Hmm.
maybe doing the right thing. I don't know. It could be good, but dude, this whole RAM shortage thing is killing me. And then, Valve, I don't know if Valve is going to be able to really release their products. I mean, I don't know anything about that because I haven't really researched the whole
Hmm.
Valve structure of everything all, but it did seem like a cool idea because if Valve comes out with essentially what a gaming PC
It's a
will
gaming
run,
PC for your living room, so it'll run
yeah,
all of your Windows games on a little small machine that is not running
right,
Windows, which is wild to me, by the way.
which is wild, wild. But that's
But
the way that
mhm,
the Steam Deck is. I mean, the Steam Deck does use a Linux base and they use a thing called Vulkan, I think it is.
yeah, so they emulate
They
like
emulate,
the
and the
Windows
emulation
stuff.
was amazing. Dude, it
Yeah.
was really good. Like when I had the Steam Deck, it was really good. I was very
But it
surprised
needs
what it could
RAM. It
do.
needs that RAM to emulate. So
Oh, so dumb.
yeah, now because they announced it and now it's out in the world that they're working on this thing, now the thing becomes what's the price? And before they were even able to announce the price is when all this stuff started happening and the RAM shortage and the delays. So I think that's the reason why they haven't announced a price yet is because they didn't want to set the wrong expectation. Maybe they saw this kind of thing coming, but yeah, it's not going to be as cheap. Which is wild to me that the fact that Apple can afford to make a $400 or $500 laptop in 2026 with the RAM prices that they are. But I think it's because, and you and I know this, Apple has always been a premium product. It's always been completely overpriced. And I think the reason for that is for them to absorb this kind of shift in the industry.
Oh yeah. Oh
Do
yeah.
you agree with
But
that?
the thing about Apple is always that the premium product and the premium pricing was never in comparative to the actual cost of the device. I mean, we're talking, like I said, everything's exploitation. So we're talking at like somewhere down the line, they're paying cents to the dollars that we're paying.
Oh yeah.
And
No, their RAM has always been overpriced, but I think it's because of that. Now they can
yeah,
afford to keep their RAM at the same price. They'll take a little bit of hit on the back end because now they're having to pay a little bit more, but they're not having to raise their prices like everyone else.
right. I do think it's cool because the unified memory that they have now with the silicone, the M4s and M3
Hmm.
chips, I think that is going to cause Apple to continue to be as competitive as they've always been. But I think it's fascinating that they decided to go with a MacBook Neo at the time when like laptop prices are going to shoot through the roof.
Yeah.
Like there's no way, unless you truly have a surplus of RAM you still haven't used for whatever reason, there's no way that somebody's going to be able to walk into a Best Buy, look at a Dell laptop, and it's going to be a very reasonable price. Like that price is going to double. And then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, do I spend $1,100 on a Dell laptop that can barely run anything, or do I get a MacBook Neo?
Yeah, and that's a real question people are going to ask themselves because there is a compelling product out there in a time where things are skyrocketing. Apple's able to keep that price point and even lower the price point. Like the Neo was nowhere near anybody's radar. We always thought, the MacBook Air starting at $1,000, that was the baseline.
That was the baseline,
That was
yeah.
the starting point for Apple, but now they kind of lowered it. It's brilliant. I think Tim Cook has done an amazing job on the marketing and the manufacturing of these products, and Apple's going to definitely benefit from his expertise.
So much going on in the world, man. I mean, between
Yeah.
that and the way that AI is taking over and vibe coding, and I think that I think if we can take anything away from what feels like a very negative, it feels like a very not negative, but it feels like doom and gloom in this episode because everything is just kind of like bad, bad, bad. But I think that the same thing that we can take away from the last episode about innovation and, the way that things have to get worse before they get better. I think that I'm talking like guys like you and me, people who are tuned in to the idea of technology and the news and technology and the progression of technology and all of the chaos that's involved in that. I think that for people like you and me, I think it's important to remember that we go through this all the time. Like
Yeah.
this isn't the first time this happened. I don't know about a RAM shortage, and it won't be the last. But I do think that, like, I mean, it's crazy because we go through shortages of everything depending on the market, depending on demand, depending on, resource availability. And I think that, like, there's something to be said about the fact that people care. So because people are caring right now, it means that there's a future where we'll have more of what we're looking forward to, of what we want. It's like you said, like, if this new technology for video games can be embraced, and it can be embraced in a way that, everybody talks about, like, okay, well, what about the people, the developers? They're going to lose their jobs. And I was like, I don't think that's the case. I think if we learn to pivot, and that's the most important word, it's just to pivot the direction that your company is going and utilizing certain technologies to increase productivity. I mean, at the end of the day, the CEO just wants to make $1 million so that they can buy a yacht. But for us, it's more or less like we're the product. We're driving the innovation. The CEO is money. He has no idea he doesn't care.
He
It's
doesn't care.
it's the
Yeah,
whole
it's irrelevant.
it's irrelevant to him. It's the whole McDonald's situation, which,
Oh my God.
hello, so good.
I love it.
So it's so good. It's so funny. But it's like, it just comes to show. It's like, why did you put your CEO to bite into a burger he would probably never touch in a million years because he's eating filet mignons and, gold infused truffles.
He wanted to be relatable and it backfired. So for those of you who don't
Backfired
know, I'll
bad.
play the clip. It's literally the CEO of McDonald's wanted to launch this new burger, the McDonald's Arch or whatever they're calling it nowadays. Yeah. So I don't know whose bright idea was it to put him in front of a camera to do a taste test, because it backfired spectacularly.
Yes.
This guy obviously is not a normal person because
he's a robot.
He normally does not consume this because, first of all, he called it a product. It was like, I'm about to consume this product. Yeah, this product. This is a great product. And when he holds it, like, he doesn't even know how to hold a burger. Like, who doesn't know how to hold a burger?
No.
And then when he goes to actually take a bite out of it, it is literally the smallest bite, and you can see the disgust in his face, like the almost gagging. Like, you can tell this guy does not normally eat this. So, and the fact that it got approved by everyone at McDonald's and it made it to social media is wild to me. Like, from a PR standpoint, that is a huge no-no. But it's funny now because other CEOs of other fast food restaurants are doing the same thing and just making fun of it, just making light of the situation. But yeah, I don't know, because it goes to the point of there is no bad publicity, because this, brought it in front of millions of people who normally wouldn't have known that the big arch was a thing. So did it help the company's bottom line or not? That remains to be seen. But
I don't know either. I am curious.
Yeah,
but it's a perfect example of, like, we cannot expect the CEO who's just looking to make more money for him and his investors and the people on the board. That's what they care about. They want to make more money. Okay, fine, we'll make you more money. But at the end of the day, the product that the company is being sold is the most important thing. I mean, without the product being sold, they don't make more money. If the product is not innovating, they don't make more money. So I think that that's the part of the equation that is very important for us to know. Like, people care, and people will continue to care. And as long as they care, the company has to care, because if the McDonald's CEO can't bite into the big arch, then what the hell is in the big arch that you don't want to bite into? Seriously. And so there's two ways this can go good. People can either take it as hilarity, I want to try this burger because the CEO wouldn't try it, or shit, I don't want to eat McDonald's. It's even the CEO is not willing to bite into it.
He doesn't want to eat it. Like, it looks disgusting.
I don't fucking want to.
Yeah, I don't want to eat it.
But I think that the interesting thing about putting the emphasis on specifically companies and how much money they're making, or how much money, or whatever, we're putting the emphasis on the companies and in the wrong people. I honestly believe, and, to talk about something that we're both very passionate about, Expedition 33.
Yes, I was actually going to mention that. Yes, that's a great
I believe
example.
that if Expedition 33 can be a tiny company in France who can surpass the expectations of every single person who touched this game, we have people in the world who care enough to do the same for other things. We just have to give it time. The market is going to, we're going to be in a rocky boat for a long time, but it is what it is, and it's going to be okay, hopefully.
Yeah. No, and the fact that they were even able to compete, like you said, with some of the bigger studios is wild to me. And it did come out later that they used AI, not in the generation of the game, but some of the textures and things, which is a whole nother story. But I think that goes to show that someone scrappy, someone with very low budget, can now take their ideas to a level that was completely unattainable before. I think now with the use of AI, whether they use it in the game or not is irrelevant to me, because a good game is a good game regardless.
Exactly.
I think that the fact that they were able to even take it to that point, win game of the year, you know, with like how many people are in their team? Like 10, 15? It's this like a super small indie team.
Super small.
And
I think you're right. I think it was like 10, 15 people.
Yeah, and they're competing with, you know, Rockstar with billions and sometimes even trillions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of employees. And it's like, I think that's the power of AI. I think that's where things are going. And I think that is a great example of someone who embraced AI to improve efficiency and still have that human element, because the story was human written. The game itself was coded by humans. It's just you use AI for fill in the holes where, you know, you need to show it to investors, for example, and the game is not complete. So there's not a lot of textures on the thing. So generate a bunch of textures so you can show it to an investor and say, hey, look, this is our idea. This is our vision. We'll go back to it with human artists and create, you know, the textures and everything that was generated by AI. We'll replace that eventually, but this is our vision. This is our idea. Right. And I think that's where the power of AI really, really lies.
I agree. And I think, I remember reading that the Sandfall used to essentially be able to generate what they would think with the models or something like that. It was just easier. It just made sense. It was like, they can already generate it. All we need to do is be able to have these models available so that we can kind of really hone in on the details. Yes. But then it's like, regardless of whether, I've always thought that this is one of the things that I think of the most. I understand, and there's an argument to be said about copyright infringement, but I understand this idea that if the vision is still coming from you, the human, and the computer is just bringing your vision to life, it's the same thing as you drawing.
It is. Yeah. It goes back to, I don't know if you remember, but you and I tried to develop a game way back in the day, and I think,
oh my God, I forgot about that.
But the idea of developing an entire world, an entire game, just the two of us was, I think the idea was so daunting that we just kind of dropped it, because we would have been working on that for years and years and years.
Yeah.
But now,
just two of us. I mean, it took like 15, 20 people to do Expedition 33 with today's technology. We were trying to do that 10 years ago, just the two of us. Like,
that
we got more than 10
one
years
environment
ago.
done. We got just the basics of, you know, the walking and the shooting, and that took us weeks, man. That was a big undertaking, and
it was a big undertaking. But I was also very impressed how quickly you were able to do one environment. So I was like, oh, well, maybe this could actually work.
Imagine what we could do nowadays with, you know, Unreal Engine and some of the generative stuff that is in there now. Like we can generate environments like nothing. So I don't know. Maybe we should revisit that.
I know now. I can't wait for Unreal Engine 6. I don't know when that's coming out, but with all the new technology, I have a feeling Unreal Engine 6 is around the corner.
Yes. And I saw some samples of The Witcher 4. I don't know if you've seen that, but that was in the new unreleased Unreal Engine, and it's just wild. The technology that they've been able to implement.
That's right.
It's like an entire forest, and everything is super detailed, and it's just it's wild. That
it looks really good.
Yeah, it looks really good. I can't wait for that one. So.
No, there's always so much to talk about when it comes to this landscape, but I think that keeping the conversation going, especially with just the way that things are going, you know, with the Oscars coming around the corner, and I know that we really want to talk about that. I think that like it's important to consider, like, you know, we talk a lot about AI, and I know that we want to talk about other topics, but I think that because AI is so in the forefront right now, I think it's crazy how much it's like the implications and the struggles that people are having it. And I think it just like, it dictates so much of our lives. I mean, the fact that I think every single time I've had a deep conversation with somebody over the last few weeks, AI has been mentioned at one point or another. And I'm like, good Lord. It's it's like, we can't get off this topic.
You can't get away from it. Yeah. It's like the .com bubble. I compare it a lot to that. It's just happening a lot, all at the same time, and it's just unsustainable to keep this growth and this spending. Is just it's bound to pop, and I think this is different in the sense that there's so much more uses out of these AI use cases that are coming out that I think eventually, yes, there will be just a few powerful companies that own the best models, like kind of like what's happening right now, but even more so in the future. A lot of the smaller companies are going to die out, but I think we're going to end up in the same place with the internet, right? So after the .com bubble, everybody was selling their stocks and saying the internet's dead. No, the internet's still here, but it's just evolved. It's different than it was in the .com bubble. So I think that's the same thing's going to happen with AI. The bubble is going to pop, but I think the fallout is going to be less so. I think the ones that are going to end up losing the most money are people like Sam Altman and people who are just way overspending. I think they're spending trillions of dollars when they're only bringing in about $200 billion. So it's kind of like there's that discrepancy. So I understand wanting to spend and wanting to be the top and wanting to stay there. But at the same time, it is a bubble. It's going to pop. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to lose money. But, you know, it's not my money.
But it won't be us. I was going to say, it's not my money. I don't care.
Yeah, we're going to leave it there. If you guys have any opinions about any of the topics we talked about, just leave them down in the comments below. Yeah, and if you guys want to follow us, we're going to be putting out some 60-second clips from the podcast on social media. So if you want to follow us, we're at BlueBox Podcast on all the things. And yeah, any last words, Josh?
I should I spend $300 to get the Z Fold? I mean, be honest. Should I? It's only $300. I mean,
think
what's
about it this way, though. If the iPhone Fold comes out and it looks way better, you're gonna have to spend another $200 to $300 to switch back. So,
you know, I'll make that money by then. You know what I mean? I'll just be like, okay, well, here's my paycheck again. You know, like it's fine.
Just hand over your paycheck. Take my money.
All right, you know what? We'll see. If by the next episode I did it, then you know what happened.
Yeah,
you know which bills are not getting paid. All right, man. I'll see you next time for sure.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.